problem panels. There are several panels whose breakers are no longer available. Also, there are a couple of manufacturers whose panels are known to be problematic. This section is all about those problem panels, including Federal Pacific Electric panels, Zinsco-Sylvania panels, and split bus panels. Pushmatic. Home inspectors may come across these very old panels. The breakers are of a push for on and push again for off design. The issues with these tend to be lack of panel capacity, sticking breakers, and/or difficulty finding replacement parts. While the panel may appear to be in functional condition, the client should be advised that these older panels are fast becoming obsolete as parts are becoming impossible to find. Home inspectors should recommend that a panel replacement may be recommended by a licensed electrician. The panel board should be evaluated by a licensed electrical contractor. Federal Pacific Electrical, or FPE. There is a general consensus among electricians and many industry experts that some electrical panels have significant safety issues. Federal Pacific Electric, stab lock panels, Zinsco GTE-Sylvania, Bulldog Pushmatic, and Challenger distribution panel boards are the most commonly encountered among these problematic panels. The problem with FPE panels is primarily with their stab lock panels and breakers. These featured stamped sheet metal or copper bus bars and breakers with thin copper tabs that were designed to lock into the bus. These have a hazardous tendency to fall out when the dead front is removed. This can be a shocking surprise to many home inspectors. The recommendation for these panels is to replace the electrical panel board. There are no recalls on these panel boards, with the exception of approximately 1,000 Eaton Cutler hammer panels in 2014 that were built on the Challenger design. FPE panels were subject to warnings issued by consumer protection groups, which include loose breakers, non-tripping breakers, and arcing problems between the breaker and its bus. The inspector should defer a full evaluation of FPE panels to a licensed electrical contractor. Home inspectors may receive criticism from unhappy sellers and even from some electricians about the need to replace these panels. The two common arguments against replacement are, "It's working just fine," or "the old breakers can be replaced with new aftermarket breakers." No one can know if it's working just fine until it is under stress. One of the significant issues with FPE, Zinsco, and Bulldog panels is that the breakers fail to trip with overcurrent, shorts, or ground faults at rates far higher than industry standards. In actual testing, breakers in these panels may trip correctly a few times before failing. Other issues with these panels are that breakers can fatigue over time, become loose on their buses, lose connection, overheat, and even melt. Most, if not all, aftermarket replacement breakers are not UL approved and cannot be considered reliable. Some aftermarket breakers are incompatible despite their advertising, such as aftermarket Pushmatic breakers. Using other branded breakers that may fit the buses is not an approved repair or considered safe. Complete panel board replacement with the most modern equipment remains the best recommendation. Note that in most areas, replacement panel boards are not required to meet all of the latest code requirements. If there is a need to modify or extend the old breaker panel to include modern AFCI breakers, the old panel boards may not be able to accommodate them. A home inspector should know what the local community or state requires. Zinsco-Sylvania Panels. The earliest Zinsco panels had buses made of copper bars and were very reliable. However, during the copper shortages of the mid-1960s in the United States, copper was replaced with anodized aluminum bars. This led to problems of poor contact between the breaker and the bus bar, and many have failed since due to arcing between the components. The problems continued after Zinsco's sale to Sylvania in the early 1970s. Due to the frequent failure of the connection between the breaker and its bus, the inspector should recommend a full evaluation and possible replacement of the panel. Split bus panel. Between the 1950s and mid-1980s, split bus panels were installed in many homes. These panels do not have a main breaker or one main disconnect. They have two bus sections. Typically, the upper bus has double-poled 240-volt breakers including the one that feeds the lower bus section where the majority of 120-volt breakers are installed. The upper bus section should not have more than 6 separate breakers or breaker handles. Breakers that have handle ties that cause both handles or toggles to move together are considered one throw. The NEC requires no more than 6 breakers or throws to completely turn off the power to a panel and home. This is called the 6 throws rule, which means that no more than 6 hand motions will turn off the whole panel. An inspector should never see more than 6 breakers to turn off a panel. As of the 2020 NEC, services must have one main disconnecting means. While split bus panels are an obsolete design, they may still be operational during the time of the home inspection. There is no requirement to replace existing split bus panel boards. Allowed to install 120-volt breakers in the top 240-volt portion of the panel. When home inspectors see a split bus panel, they should count how many throws are required to turn off the panel. More than 6 throws are usually found where someone has added a circuit to a full panel by adding a double breaker, tandem or piggyback breaker, on the upper bus section. Installing an additional 120-volt breaker in the top portion of a split bus panel is likely a defect. The breaker may not be listed or approved for that panel. This changes the number of disconnecting throws from 6 to 7, and that is a defect.